guys, it's November 11th, and that means Happy Veterans Day to my fellow veterans out there in veteran land. Um, Originally, all I was going to do was post a quick message. This should be quick. I do want it in before midnight, before it's Sunday on the East Coast. Um, what what I found was, as I went through a few pictures, I just wanted a few of myself over in the Philippines. I wanted to keep it all relevant to my just before I was in NTCC and after over there, and then I was gonna end it and show you my daughter when she was over in Kuwait. She went there in 2019. And then right after the first of the year, the pandemic hit, the lockdowns, and she was extended in Kuwait till October 2020. Well, that's not really true. A month or two before that, because they kind of had to go to Fort Bliss, I believe, and, decontaminate, whatever. And so I have just a few pictures of her running the Veterans Day run over there. I don't know if it was a 5K or 3K with their sacks on, with their rucksacks on. But anyway, as I was going through these pictures, so I went into the Air Force when I was 25. I did not go in right out of high school. I waited for a job that I wanted. I wanted to work with computers, and I really wanted to be in a flying squadron. And so you'll have to excuse me. The weather has changed here. It's gotten cold and rainy, and everything's, how it gets, all in your sinuses and stuff. And I try to remove all sniffles and things like that, but I don't always get to, so I'm just apologizing ahead of time. It's real life, huh? Anyway, when I went over to the Philippines, I had already been claimed to be a Christian. I'd become a Christian in 1985 in May in New Jersey in I guess you'd call it a charismatic church. They believed in everything we did, everything. That's why I think I was drawn to NTCC. I was a person who really enjoyed wearing dresses instead of pants, which is ironic being I was in the military. But as you'll see from a picture here, I do have one when I got pregnant and I went through my NCO school before putting on sergeant. I was pregnant, so I got to wear a dress. Yes. And that picture of me there is I had initially planned to be a lifetime, to make a career of the military. I knew that when I went to this professional education class. It's called Professional Military Education, PME School for the Air Force. But I always give it my all, and I think because I was a little older than everyone else, and I tended to have like a mommy way about me. And I like people, so I had done public speaking through politics before I went into the Air Force. And so I wasn't expecting to win the highest award, which is the John Levitto Award. And the day that we had the awards ceremony, a bunch of my supervisors were there, fellow co-workers, and friends of mine were invited from the church. And then I found out that I had won that award, and that's what that picture is with me pregnant, which I thought was funny. Like you're getting this military honor and you're staying there pregnant as a woman. I don't know. It was kind of humorous to me at the time. I knew I was getting out when I PCS'd from the Philippines. I only had maybe a year left I went to Homestead, Florida. So I don't don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny that I was getting out. But when you give it your all, I think the interesting thing, this is just coming to me now. The very person who invited me out to church stopped coming to church eventually. And so by the time that picture took place, it was in 1990, because that's when my daughter was born. I don't recall when. And so this person who invited me out, he was in my class too. He was going to be putting on sergeant as well. And so, when he got up to give his speech for something, I think we were tasked with giving a speech about something to do with Russia, of course, Cold War. And it was like he was preaching. It was really weird. And we were cordial to each other and all. I didn't have any problem with him, but, he knew the deal out in NTCC. And by that point, the pastor had changed, and that was that was just an awful situation, I have to say. And so it was just, you almost look at it, it's so goofy, as if, oh, God, you curried favor with the people who were deciding who was going to get this high award, and it looks, of course, great on a resume, which did not matter to me because I was getting out, and I was a woman, and women aren't supposed to work, and so it's all that, but I gave my all for it. I will always give my all. Several things that had happened in the class that caused the instructors to look kindly upon me, but that was myself, like, desiring to do that, and of course at the time, you don't want to do anything to not bring glory to God. So it's just coming to me now as I'm talking about that I forgot all about that situation. Like, I didn't forget it, but the details are starting to crystallize in my mind again. And I did reach out to him recently and said, I just hope you're doing really well. And he seems to have had a stellar Air Force career, and then has gone on to do some amazing things in the civilian sector, I believe, as a subcontractor, which is the type of work I do too for the government. So I was just really happy. I sent him some pictures, and I can't stress enough how much of a part of the process of healing it is to do that, to reach out to former friends, and you don't even have to say anything, you don't even have to talk about that time, but just let them know I'm thinking about you and I care about you. Anyway, Tracy's going on and on. Let me stop this. I had waited 1.5 years for the job I wanted, got in, went overseas, absolutely loved my squadron. I was in a search and rescue helicopter squadron. Then we changed over to special ops helicopters, and we were just involved in so many things, whether it was real missions. There was big earthquakes while I was over there, one that was, I think, 7.0 on the Richter scale, and various other things. A coup attempt against the president of the Philippines because she was very pro-communist. Just fun things like that. Typhoons and all. And so we also worked with a deaf school that was, I believe it was started by Americans, and I was trying to look it up online recently, and I'm not sure I got the right school, but when I tell the story of when I started going to the church here, which will be tomorrow, I will probably include that. So here I am. I come to the Philippines. I claim to be a Christian. I was happy to be away from, bad influences because initially I was going to be stationed at Fort Walton Beach in Florida, and that was known to be a party town. Here I went to the Philippines, Clark Air Base, which was far worse, but I never got involved in that scene, very thankfully. And so as I got there and got situated, I met up with some people, I guess you'd call them like a bunch of single people mostly, who just did things together. And one of them had been involved with an orphanage off base. I think I've spoken about it before. It was an orphanage slash shelter. So any indigenous peoples, the Negritos of the Philippines, a lot of them lived in the mountains or out in the country. And so this Catholic church sponsored this orphanage, meaning provided monies when they felt like it. They were like, when you have a third world country, if you've been in one, you know that there is the very wealthy and the very poor. There's almost a non-existent middle class. I don't know if it's changed over there now, but then that's the way it was. And even the church, of course, I was brought up in the Catholic Church, and it's about as obscene and disgusting of a group, as other cults out there. So as I got involved with these people, we went off base, and I think I showed a few pictures here. We did various things. I'm in that hole digging because we went to a barrio off base, and that we learned about this family who had been coming to the church we were going to. It was actually one that was off base, and it was run by Americans and Filipinos. And if we were ever sequestered on base, there was also like an outlet for those people, for that group there as well, so that we were never without a situation, where we could not go to church. So these people would go out regularly and help some of the people that came to church, help them in their barrio. This one particular lady had a hut, and we were adding a kitchen onto the back, which sounds very like flip that house, remodel type thing. It wasn't like that. It was, we dug in the ground. One of the guys knew how to do this. We dug up the sand. He had a sifter, and if you look in the picture off to on the right side of the picture is something on the ground, and that's a sifter. And we would put the sand on there and get all the rocks and things out, and then I forget what the ratio was of water to sand and all that. And we would put it in a mold and make bricks, and they would dry out in the sun. And then there were the guys who knew how to basically just slap together some like a little brick alcove, off of the main hut, where they could just go in there and put some pots and have a fire to put a pot over, and that was the kitchen that we were building. So we did things like that. We worked with the kids at the orphanage. We would do things with them. We had to be careful because it was run by the Catholics, and they did require the kids to go into their little chapel every day and say their rosaries and all, like after school and whatnot. But we just talked to them about God, and the lady who ran the place was a Christian. She wasn't Catholic, and she would let us come and have Bible studies, and other adults and all would come, and we had a really nice time. We had a really good time. And the interesting thing about when you're in the Philippines, I have a few pictures there. There's myself sitting with a weird face on and some big 80s shoulder pads, and I was with a lady I knew and her family out in a barrio, and I think I brought her. She was a house girl in the barracks. You really had to have one. It was at first I was like, no, I don't want a house girl, somebody doing something for me. And they had to educate me that, Tracy, if you don't, you are robbing them really of money. They'll come in, they clean the room every day, they make the beds, they wash your uniforms, they know how to starch them. So then they said, they get paid a certain amount and you can tip them if you want or whatever. They tend to become very close with them. My house girl, I just loved her to death. I think I had her the whole time that I was in the barracks before I got married and moved off base. And she, like probably most Filipinos you talk to, will love God and all. And I had this Bible that I'd had for years, and she didn't have one. And I told her, I said, well, I'll get you one. And then I might have just, she said to come out to her place to meet her family, and because that's what they do, they will invite you to events. You don't know anyone. The young lady sitting on the steps with two little boys, she helped out at the orphanage too, and she was like, you gotta come to my brother's birthday party. Okay, it wasn't one of those little guys, it was someone her age. And I didn't know anybody in there. Many of them didn't even speak English, but they just they were delighted to have an American show up. And if you came with a gift or something, oh my goodness, you were the bomb. And so that was where I first had my first, as a part Italian person, my first plate of spaghetti and hot dogs. And I did not ask what was in the hot dogs over there. If I'm worried about them here in America, oh my goodness, I did not want to know why it was that crazy pink color over there. I just didn't want to know. Less you know, the better, right? And so we would do things with the kids at the orphanage. So I was kept really busy, and it was after a little while that I began having to go on base. I think something had happened. I don't know if it was a typhoon or something had come through. And I met these ladies who were my age. They were dependent wives. And they invited me to, it might have been an Assembly of God church, but they said, hey, we meet at lunchtime to pray. And then if we're able to go off base, we go off base, and we talk to the girls in the bars about Jesus. And the girls in the bars, if you're not familiar with it, it's I knew that everybody went off base to party and all. I knew that guys brought back these girls that they paid for. They paid the mama-san at the bar to take them home, have sex and all, and then boot them out. And so these two ladies told me, so I met up with them and started meeting them for lunch to pray. And then when we were able to go back out off base, we went out there, and it was very eye-opening. I mean, I thought I'd seen things when I was a partier in New York City and New Jersey, and you go to, crazy places that you just never would imagine you'd find yourself. But this was something totally different. So the first place we went, and I showed a few pictures of Fields Avenue. I found some online that were from 1989. So that was a year before I was out there doing all this, because it was probably between the end of 87 and or the beginning of 88 and I don't know, the rest of 88, I think, the whole year of 88, this type of things I was doing. And so we went to this first bar because it was lunchtime, so they weren't open for business yet. The girls were just getting up after a night of whatever. And as we sat there, I guess they had some inroads with the people who owned the bars to come in and talk to the girls. And they were very, very respectful, very welcoming. But the one girl we were talking to, and the inside of the bar was kept dark. It was pretty quiet. They were just sitting there eating rice, and they looked bedraggled. And the one lady asked the girl how old she was, and she said she was 16. She looked like she was in her late 20s. She just had a hard look. I think being in these places with the cigarette smoke all the time and drinking and the lifestyle of being with different people every night, they did not look happy. Let's say that too. They just had a hard look to their face. And I basically, the first times we went out, I was very touched by the loving nature of the two women I was with, the two Americans, and how they just sat next to them. They just maybe put their hand over their hand and look at them and say, what's your story? You know, what's the deal? And I'll never forget this. I told myself I wasn't going to get emotional, but I'm sorry. I just always do. I remember it vividly. I remember what she looked like. She said when she was 13, her family told her, they lived way out in the country somewhere in the Philippines, and they said there's work in Angeles City. Like, all these people, that is part of the culture. You go and you help the family earn money. Even some of these kids in the orphanage, it was a constant, like, you see that little kid in the one picture where I'm holding him tightly. His name was Peter. He used to run off all the time because his family wanted him to beg at the main gate of the base or do other things, steal things. And so this girl said when she was 13, she was sent to the city, and they were expecting her to come back with money, you know, periodically. And you know, that's a big thing in the Philippines. You save face, and you do what you're supposed to do. And so she came to Angeles City and found out that the work that was available for girls like her were in the bars. And you could just tell by her telling her story that that's not what she wanted to be doing. And her family was needing to be fed. And so, you know, we would tell her about Jesus, these ladies would, that particular day, and pray with her, and said, you know, we can come out and see you often. And I couldn't, because I was doing this. I was taking a part of a day off to do this. And it was very, 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 very touching. I don't recall what the follow-up was like. This was near the end of '88. And so we went to several other bars on different days, and it was the same thing. It was very dark, very few lights on in the bar. And we'd sit there while the girls ate their rice. That was their breakfast/lunch. And, you know, they had to give a portion of what they made to the mama-san there. I don't know what they came away with. And they were just... So what they'll do is they'll nod their head like, yeah, it's okay. But you know how people's body language can tell another story. It was like that, and it just broke my heart. It just really broke my heart. They were so young. And so I think it was after the first of the year of '89 that a friend of mine, a mutual friend of mine and my ex-husband's, he invited me to, I was actually house sitting on base for one of the officers in my squadron, because when a house was empty, the locals would climb the wall and break in and steal things. So it was constant, just constant. So I would stay there at night, and I was a fraidy cat, so I heard every single noise, but the the people I house sat for, they hired a negrito, one of the indigenous people, and they would walk around with blow darts. I mean, they were known for um, things they did during World War II. They just didn't mess around, but they were just stealth. And but every now and then they might crackle a dry leaf or something, and I'd be wondering, what is that out there? And so he came by and told me, he said, "You have to come out to this church. You can't believe it. It's so great." And they just really preach the truth. And so I came out, and that was, and I'll get into that tomorrow, but that was the Ashmores. And there's a picture here of a little place on Felicitas, which was right outside the main gate of Clark Air Base. And it's funny because these are recent pictures, so that place where the serviceman's home was is now just, I don't even know if someone's living in there or if they're holed up in there like an enemy camp. It looks like it's got barbed wire all on the top of the gate for no one to be able to climb in. But across the street is still that Kingdom's Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, same one that was there when we were there. It's all painted ugly yellow and red, which are just the weirdest color combination in my mind. But anyway, that's besides the point. So, what's my point in all this? It's kind of a rambling thing. I'll admit it. It's Veterans Day. I'm thinking about people. I saw those pictures, and it made me think of the young girls. It made me think of those two special ladies who truly had a heart for souls, all souls. And I'd like to believe that there was some watering going on in those young girls' lives. I hope they made it. I hope they made it to safety. And the saddest part, though, is once I got involved with this group, you will find out right away. They are not a charitable organization. Like Vic Johansson just wrote about the whole thing with the, in their bylaws it says about what they're going to do, their purposes, and they mention orphanages and old age homes, or I'm paraphrasing that part, like for ministers. And yet, if you hear them preach, it's like, you're worried about your retirement? Well, go get people in church and save your money. That's what they say all the time. All the time. I don't know, maybe, hopefully behind the scenes, the Keckles are teaching people in their Bible school how to do whatever it is they do with their for-profit LLCs to earn extra money so that these people can be taken care of too, and can have something if they get if they fall into bad health, or they they just need to step back because they're too old. I see preachers in the pulpit right now who are old and who sound like they're going to die right there at the pulpit. It breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. And many were in the service, were military members, and very likely they would have been far better off had they stayed or gotten out and gone to a real college. It's all a lie. And they're preying upon service members to come and be a part of what? A building program. So please, on this Veterans Day, all veterans, all service members, please stay away from this place. Please. It's bad for your health. It's bad for your marriage. It's bad for your children. It's bad for you. And it's bad for anyone that you come in contact with and invite out to this place. So, I don't know, from my heart to yours, I just, please reconsider. Please do some research and find out, is there more to this group than meets the eye? Of course, you're going to meet nice people. Of course, you're going to meet helpful, nice people. We all have. We all were. But when the very core of this group is the manipulation and the extreme authority, all of those nice things don't outweigh it. It doesn't zero it out. And so, anyway, so on that happy note, happy Veterans Day, what's left of it. And again, I appreciate anyone listening. And please share. Please tell other people, just tell them to do their own research and check things out before. We should always do that before we go anywhere or do anything. Check it out. See what the deal is. Okay? All right. Take care. I'll probably trot off and try to get a few other videos in. Thanks.